Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the moderator of the next session, Robin Shepherd.
Thank you. Yep. Please. Thank you very much, everybody. I'm sure other people will be coming in from lunch. Let me first of all immediately introduce Deputy Prime Minister of Ukraine, Oleksiy Chernyshov. It's a great pleasure to have anyone from Ukraine here. We have many great friends who've come here today, and it's a particular delight to have you. And we're going to be discussing Return and Rebuild Ukraine's strategy for post-war recovery. And Mr. Chernyshov is perhaps uniquely qualified both to talk and act on this subject as the minister of the newly formed Ministry of National Unity, which I believe was created in December 2024. And in previous roles, you've done a lot of work in the civic administration in Kiev, also in transportation, I believe, certainly Naftogaz in the commercial sector. Well, utilities are obviously a crossover between the commercial and the state sector. And we're going to be talking a lot about refugees. I don't know whether in fact, I didn't mention just before we came on that I have an apartment in Bratislava, and just after the outbreak of full-scale war, I live in the United States, and I housed a family of refugees from Kharkiv. And so I have a tiny bit of personal experience of how refugees come into a country outside Ukraine and then become dispersed both within the local community. Slovak and Ukrainian are very close languages, but also some went into Germany, some went to the United States. And it's something that a personal experience can help me visualize when we're talking about refugees. But there's also just the sheer scale. And one of the things Mr. Chernyshov is going to be doing is using some slides to help illustrate the complexity, because it is a very complex question about refugees. But just before we get there, this whole discussion presupposes there's going to be a peace. And more or less every day, especially when you live in the United States, as I do, well, it gets pushed off the agenda by things like riots in LA and domestic politics, but it does come in and out of the discussion. Do you believe that there really is a prospect in the short or medium term of an actual peace? Can President Trump pull this off?
Hello, everyone, and many thanks for attending this panel. I really appreciate you being here and having the interest to this, I think, very important topic today, as we're going to be discussing human capital and Ukrainians in Ukraine and abroad, and our collaboration with European and other countries. Coming back to the peace perspectives, I would like to once again say that there is no nation than Ukrainians that want peace more than us. And what we see a daily continuous attack and terror, Russian terror, mainly on civilian infrastructure of Ukrainian cities, using combined attacks with drones, ballistic and cruise missiles, and it's happening every day and night. And that is the practical position that we witness. And I don't think that is moving us towards the peace right now. Obviously, the West, which is a civilized bloc with European Union, United States, Canada, Japan, Norway, and UK, should increase imposing sanctions, should deprive Russia from the incomes related to energy and other things. I think Russia understands only one language of strength. Otherwise, we will not sit at the table or will not discuss it practically. So this would move us to peace.
And do you think that there is an argument out there that the violent escalation, particularly the attacks on civilian areas, but also the attempts, that there is an argument that this could be the last-ditch attempt by Putin to grab as much as he can before he is ultimately forced to the negotiating table? Do you subscribe to that?
I would not. I don't think. I think we are trying to guess in this situation. For more than 3 years, we are witnessing absolutely opposite position. And I think the situation is escalating rather than moving towards peace. Again, there is no other way but to motivate through strength Russia in order to be at the table and have the practical discussion and not to, I would say, manipulate.
I was reading an article this morning, actually, from the Kiev Independent about the Operation Spider's Web, which was a very spectacular military attack very deep inside Russia. This was nowhere near the Ukrainian borders, in fact. It was a long, long way into Russia. And I also noticed that the head of the Special Intelligence Service said that this was not the last attack. Is that something, is Ukraine also thinking potentially that in order to get to a position of a peace that, of course, will not be perfect, but as good as you can possibly get, that actually escalating and showing Russia that if it continues this war, then it itself will suffer unless it comes to the negotiating table? Is that part of what things like Operation Spider's Web was all about?
I think it's obvious and logic that Ukraine will continue to defend itself. And that is of nature, of resilience that Ukrainians are demonstrating for more than 3 years. And we will do everything to protect our sovereignty and to protect our dignity and to develop new developed Ukraine. I will not comment on the special operations, especially those that might theoretically be planned. It doesn't make sense.
Understood. Yeah. But it is interesting that I think a lot of people, probably almost, especially in Russia, were surprised by the efficiency and effectiveness of that operation. And the SBU chief actually said there will be more surprises to come. So, but it won't be a surprise if you tell us what it is. So I understand. Well, look, at some point this war will come to an end. All wars do. And one of your roles is to address the question of the refugees. Now, I could throw out a bold statistic of what, 6.9 million refugees, but we can break that down, can't we? I mean, who are the refugees? Before we get to the question of how we get them back, who are the refugees?
Yeah, it's a good question, because I think all of us underestimate the number of Ukrainians being abroad. I don't know if I will be supported by your technical team. Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
So we have an interesting figure stating that Ukrainians abroad are now from 20 to 25 million people. And Ukrainians inside Ukraine, controlled territory of Ukraine, is less than 32 million people. So roughly half and half. How this 25 million appeared? Obviously, we take three categories. Category number one, citizens that left Ukraine during last 35 years before the full-scale invasion. Category number two, citizens that left during the full-scale invasion, refugees. And number three, diaspora and ethnic Ukrainians. I would like to state that Ukrainian population decline has been a constant fact since Ukraine gaining independence in 1991. We started with 52 million people, and then the decline was quite obvious and steady, and was not always connected to the war risks or war in practice. If we would consider the group number two, which is the refugees that left Ukraine during the war, I think that is the most practical group that might consider coming back. And we take a look at the European perspective, we see the countries where the Ukrainians relocated since 2022, and it's about 5 million people. You see that 60% of Ukrainians are based in three countries, Germany, Poland, and Czech Republic. And being here in Czech Republic, I would like to admit that Czechia remains the country with the Ukrainians being the biggest national minority here in this country. And I think if we would calculate in the GDP perspective, I think the Czech commitment is very serious, if not the biggest, So that is the situation, and once the stable peace is reached, some Ukrainians would consider return back home. Our polls, and we conduct some polls and surveys in these countries, show that a number of around 30% of Ukrainians will consider coming back to Ukraine within the first half a year after the stable peace. Another 30% of Ukrainians most probably have decided to stay in Europe forever. And there is a group in between, 40%, that will monitor the situation, will monitor the development of the country, and they will decide later, in 1, 2, 3 years, depending on the success of Ukraine. And I think we should concentrate on that. Understanding that population decline has been a Ukrainian problem for years, I think once Ukraine is successful after the war, as the reformed country, reformed democracy, economically stable and developed, then obviously people will make their choice and they will come back for new jobs, for better infrastructure, for recovery, and so on and so on. So I think when I'm being asked, how are you planning to get Ukrainians back, I'm always answering, we cannot make them come back in any kind of artificial or any kind of other model. The only way they come back is successful Ukraine. If Ukraine is successful economically after the war and integrating into the European Union, people would love to come back home. People love being home. It's normal, but they don't want to be during the war.
I mean, it's essentially a soft power argument. It's the power of attraction. Well, right now, obviously, it's almost the opposite of that, which is why people have left. Because, I mean, you know, people are frightened, and understandably so. As I mentioned, I saw pictures of these people's buildings just destroyed in Kharkiv.
Right.
And this will be a very common theme that you've encountered for the last few years, every single day. It sounded from the figures, if we were talking about 7 million refugees since 2022, about 2 million will come back when the fighting ceases. Maybe about 1.5, 2 million will stay regardless. And it's that center ground. I mean, there are obvious things. I mean, I happen to be a dual national of the United States and the United Kingdom. It's not an uncommon practice to grant dual nationality. Is that is there and I actually go between the two countries all the time. Is that a model that Ukraine is offering? I mean, is it just as a matter of fact? I don't know the law in Ukraine. You can presumably have more than one nationality, right?
It's a good question, and thank you for raising it. Actually, Ukraine is one of the countries that does not allow multiple nationality. And I think it's a post-Soviet narrative that left after the Soviet Union times. Given the fact that 90% of Ukrainians now in the world are living in the countries with multiple citizenship. So we have made a decision to introduce multiple citizenship law in Ukraine. Moreover, we plan to do it next week. And I think that is a clear answer to us, how to link connection between Ukrainians. First of all, we will grant citizenship to Ukrainian diaspora, mainly the Canadians, Americans, and other continents. And for those Ukrainians that are taking European citizenship now, we cannot stop them, but we want them to keep Ukrainian citizenship. And there are others who are also joining Ukraine now, and foreigners, and some of them would be happy to become Ukrainians. A lot of, I would say, other nationalities are considering Ukrainian passport, and we just want to be smooth and clear. That is our answer to it.
So let's say if I move to Ukraine, if I move to Kiev the day tomorrow or the day after a ceasefire or something,
yeah,
and I made a commitment to be there for a few years, you're going to introduce a very easy path to citizenship, are you?
Very easy. If you represent Ukrainian diaspora and you can confirm your Ukrainian roots, we will not even ask you for a term of your stay in Ukraine. So you're going to be receiving it quite fast. So, but if you're a foreigner or a British person, then you would have to spend 5 years in Ukraine in order to get into and to step into the Ukrainian citizenship.
Beyond the legal framework, which you said you're changing next week, which is quick work, famously there has been a deal, or at least a preparatory agreement, I'm not quite sure how we describe it, with President Trump and the United States focusing on the extractive sector in Ukraine. How big a deal is that going to be in terms of boosting the Ukrainian economy since, and we'll talk about other issues as well, but since that is very much a headline issue that Ukrainians in the diaspora can see? Is that going to be something that creates a lot of jobs for Ukrainians, a lot of wealth for Ukraine?
Yeah, I think it's a good deal. First of all, it brings us to the topic of economic development after the war. And that is the economic success is the only way how to develop the country and bring people back, and also to invite others. And we should concentrate on that. We should develop it further. I would like to share with you another information. If the war would be over today and Ukrainian government would plan doubling the GDP in 10 years, which is quite optimistic but reachable parameter for the countries after the war, we would be experiencing a deficit of at least 3 million workers, 3 million people on the labor market. So that is the challenge we are facing. So I think we should be concentrating on making people and encouraging people to return to Ukraine after the war is over in order to enforce our labor market and to produce this economic growth and the dynamics we are looking forward to. So the mineral deal is great. We should exercise it. We should develop it. We should make more deals like that because it's about setting up the environment for better business and for economic angle.
I mean, there's a very interesting segue into the question of cooperation with the European Union, where the vast majority of the refugees are currently living. Is that I'm almost certain you're going to say that you're not going to encourage European governments to force people back to Ukraine, or to by not extending visas or something like that. And yet, if you have such a shortage of labor, there's surely at least a little bit of an incentive not to make things so easy for them to stay abroad that they don't actually come back.
It's a good question. You know, honestly speaking, you cannot force anyone to make this or that decision. I think you should offer the conditions of life and economic development that motivates you to select this or other country. Human capital flows within the world, especially Europe, very freely and independently, and you cannot make it go there or there. The only way you should develop intensivized and developed markets and free markets, the democratic markets. That's the only way we should do. And we treat every single Ukrainian, regardless of the place of residence right now, absolutely equally. We would be happy to support his or her decision when to come back, whether to come back at all, whether to integrate. I think we should keep the global Ukrainian narrative and to be united as one family. I'm sure if Ukraine is successful, big companies will come to recover Ukraine. Big European companies, who they will employ. They will definitely bring Ukrainians from Europe because they speak language, they understand the nature of Ukraine, they understand the philosophy, and they know how to behave. And I'm sure they will do it. So I think we should concentrate on answering one question. What is Ukraine day one after the war? What is the model of the country? How we speed up the reforms? How we engage with economic incentives? How we attract direct investment? Please do not forget, Ukraine has been an equity shortage market for decades. So obviously we should create an environment for better business opportunities. It would require significant structural reforms in the rule of law and anti-corruption fight. Obviously, we should do all of these things, and we should not wait until the war is over. We should do it now, and we are doing it now.
One of the silver linings to an extremely dark cloud, of course, in Ukraine is that Ukraine has become very much a leader in tech, in a lot of aspects of tech, particularly in I mean, you have LLMs and generative AI, and there's discriminative AI, which is particularly relevant to such things as drones, as whatever. Many of these things are dual use. Is the tech sector something that you are interested in promoting internationally? Is it something that you believe? And also we haven't got that much time left. What sort of sectors do you believe will take off quickly once peace comes in Ukraine?
You know, Ukraine has been associated historically during last decades with the following industries. Obvious industry is agriculture. Another one is IT. Another one is mineral resources. And I think we should be open for a breakthrough in other industries as well. I think Ukraine should develop the technological breakthrough inside the country to develop the agricultural business into a different scale and stop being a resource for and commodity producer, but to switch to a product-based country. And we should be more technologically advanced in major spheres. Yeah. So I think Ukraine has the greatest asset Ukraine has is a human capital. So we are in all the rankings and all the ratings of the countries, I would say, incentives and countries' parameters. Ukraine has the best ratings in human capital. The capital that we are losing every day now, and we should do everything to create opportunities for them to get back and to remain in the country.
And if you had to, I mean, if there is let's assume this is all predicated upon them there being a peace, but if there isn't, I don't want to finish on a down note, but if we don't actually get in the short or medium term to a ceasefire, do you anticipate further refugee migration away from Ukraine? And that also, the consolidation in countries in which the Ukrainian diaspora already lives, of those new lives where they have kids at school and speak new languages and have jobs and have essentially started new lives?
There are many challenges. Obviously, when the family is out of its home country for more than 3 years, the integration appears to be quite fast. You cannot resist it. And to be honest and objective, we are still having tens of thousands of Ukrainians that are leaving Ukraine. And definitely the peace is the only solution how to stop it. There's no other way. And the sooner we get it, the sooner we will be able to redevelop the country, to start recovery, and to finalize reforms, and to be on a track to the European integration. I think the future of Ukraine is very much dependent on the speed and pace of our European integration. And the sovereign Ukraine very much dependent on its European choice.
Well, let's hope that there is both a just peace and a quick peace. Mr. Chernyshov, thank you very much. Please let's show our appreciation to our guests.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.